What up, T-Dog?
Hey Sarah, how are you today?
Pretty good. It's
You excited
great being
to go
at
to
the
the
beach.
beach?
Yes.
Woo! So what have you been reading this summer?
I read All I Ever Wanted by Kathy Valentine.
Oh, that sounds cool. Who's that?
She's the bassist in the Go-Go's.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah,
what was
I'm
that
into-
about?
So it was about kind of how she got into music and how she got successful at music. So basically what happened is she's from Texas like us.
That's cool.
She's from Austin and
All
she
the best musicians are.
Yeah, she came from kind of a troubled childhood. Like, her mom was one of those moms who's more like your best friend, and so she didn't get much support at home. But she kind of found herself in music when she learned to play guitar when she was a teenager. And she started playing punk gigs and ended up in a few punk bands, and that's how she got discovered by the Go-Go's and got picked up as their bassist. And
that's super cool.
yeah, and so they got super successful when their first album, Beauty and the Beat, came out. And that album is actually still the top album on the Billboard charts.
I was actually just reading that.
Or yeah, so it's the only one to ever hit #1 for an all-female band who also wrote and composed and played all their own songs.
That is so cool. That sounds like a really good book.
Yeah.
I just finished Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
What was that about?
So she's like a mommy blogger that started an online community. It was called Momentary. And she wrote 2 books when she was married, had her kids. The first one was Love Warrior, and the second one was Carry On Warrior. I like to think of them like memoirs. A lot of it had to do with how she parented, how she raised her kids, what she did with her husband. Well, this third book, Untamed, is actually how she left her husband and she came to meet her wife. So it has a lot to do with, breaking the stigmas of society. And there is this really great part right at the beginning where she talks about, she takes her daughter to the zoo and they see this cheetah, and the cheetah's in this, cage, and it says it was raised in captivity. But the cheetah, she can tell it's wild, that there's still wildness in him. And so she's watching it and she says, I don't want to live tamed. I want to be untamed. I want to break out of the social stigma. Well, it wasn't until her wife, Abby, walks into an author signing that she's doing that she realizes, this is my life. This is the woman I want to be with. And I just found the whole story just absolutely wonderful. I loved it.
Super cool. So, like, what were your takeaways?
We can do hard things. That's something that I've repeated, I think, to myself since I finished the book. Glennon Doyle says that she repeats it to herself daily, and I think that's actually her podcast name as well, as We Can Do Hard Things. But she repeats it, and when things get frustrating or difficult, or she knows when she wants to do something that society or someone else may not like, she says, we can do hard things. That life's not easy, but we can do hard things. That was probably my #1 takeaway.
That's a lot like my takeaways from my book too. So basically, with my author, she was on top of the world, her records are selling great, but there starts to be some disagreements in the band, and the band ends up splitting up for a while. And she kind of spirals, and she gets lost in alcoholism, but with some help from her friends, she ends up picking herself up from that and getting help, and she's sober now. And basically, she also had to do hard things. That was kind of what I thought about the
Would
book,
you
too.
say that she is a sensitive person?
I don't know.
Glennon Doyle, she wrote about that a lot, how she was always portrayed as sensitive and shy and reserved.
Did she feel like she was, though?
Yes and no. She knew she had more sensitivities than others, but she didn't like the word sensitive.
Yeah.
So even for her daughter, she said that her daughter sees the world differently than others. It's not a sensitivity, it's just a different set of eyes. Would you recommend your book to others?
Yeah, definitely. Especially, I'm really into music memoirs anyway.
Me too. Have you read Don Henley's?
No, but that's a really good one. That would be good. But yeah, I'd recommend it, especially if you're a feminist and you're into girl power success stories. It's definitely one of the better ones.
Okay.
What about you?
Well, I would recommend it to anybody that loves a memoir or a philosophical parenting book, but I would not recommend it to just everybody. After reading my book, I did hop on Goodreads, which most of us do.
Oh, what'd they say?
And a lot of people weren't as fond of the book as I was. They said that it seemed like she was just placing her ideologies into the world, and I didn't feel that. I felt like she was just talking about herself and her life and what she was doing and what worked for her.
Different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Yep, that's for sure. All right, we're at the beach. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Flash past you. Oh, there's a flash. What's your favorite genre of book? Favorite genre of all time? Like if you go and you know you're gonna find something in the genre that you'll like.
Memoir actually is one of my favorite genres.
Yeah,
I even took
mine too.
I took a whole class on it when I was in college.
That autobiographies.
Yeah, and I got to read a lot of good stuff like Girl Interrupted. Have you ever read that?
I haven't read it. I've seen the movie. That's one that I would like to read.
I haven't seen the movie. It's a good book. Check it out.
I'm like, that's one that I'd like to read.
What are some summer picks, other summer picks you think of?
The Guncle. The Guncle was actually my first choice for Book Buzz this month, but it only had just came out in May, and so I couldn't get a hold of it just yet. But it is about an uncle, a gay uncle, who has his sister actually passes away, and he ends up with 3 little kids, and so he's got to raise these 3 little kids, which I thought sounded really great. I'm like, oh yeah. When you just don't have any kids and you get given some, that sounds like a good time.
Right now, this isn't a summer pick probably. I'm reading The Stand though, and I figured it was timely.
Yeah.
So guys, we're actually at the Sylvan Beach Park today. If you want to check out the LaPorte Library, which is nearby, you definitely should.
And then come to the beach afterwards. And remember,
no shelf required.